chaos on the plains. What else would you say? But here's the only thing I will say. I wonder if Hugh Freeze thinks he would win that game 9 times out of 10. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered postgame show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking everything that we saw down at Jordan-Hare Stadium as somehow, some way, with no offensive line, no protection, no life for 3.5 quarters.
No playmakers on the outside. You're down 60 or 7 receivers.
Oklahoma survives. Actually, not survives. Outworks, outgains, outclass, outdoes everything against Auburn 27-21. But real quickly, make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. This is your #1 source for all things SEC. Sometimes you might not hit that subscribe button, so just make sure that you have the subscribe clicked on and the ring notification. That way you don't miss any post-game show, live reactions, Sunday Fun Day, Dave Talks Ball, and much, much more. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Make sure that also you're following us on the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Check out Dave at Mock10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to find all our great work, make sure that you visit secunfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall on game days at RHOBACK.com. Using the promo code SECU for $20 off your next purchase. Fall weather is upon us, which means it's time to get those sweaters. It's time to get those button-ups. It's time to get those half sleeves. And the best place to do so is at RHOBACK. Promo code SECU for 20% off. Dave, I'm going to let you start this one because I'm still frustrated. We've had an hour to see this game going past. We've already done one live show. We've already talked about one game that seems to always unravel the way it does. And here I am, happy that Oklahoma won because if I picked them and I didn't end up losing money on that, but still, Auburn once again finds a way to give it up. And you know what the first thought was that I had watching as Kip Lewis marched it on back to suck the wind out of Jordan-Hare Stadium? It can only be Auburn. It can only be Auburn. Only happen to Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, you're up 21-10 midway through the fourth. Oklahoma cut it to a score within 8 with 8 minutes left. And the pick six with 4 minutes. Really, the only way you probably do lose, if we're just being honest, if you punt, played field position, let's just say you pin them within the 10, that's going to be tough. But man, again, the SEC Unfiltered tour was there last week. I thought the Arkansas loss was tough. This one's even tougher, and I really don't even think it's close with. Especially when you factor in the stuff Cole mentioned as we got into the show, how many people they were missing on the offensive line, 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7 of their top receiving threats, starting a true freshman in his first start. Feel like Auburn controlled, kind of dominated the game for most of it outside the very beginning. In the very end, you felt like, all right, Auburn's going to go get him one. I picked in our pick'em, we all picked Oklahoma, but I'll be honest with you, probably yesterday, if you made me pick, I probably would have picked Auburn, just the way it was feeling with all these injury reports and stuff coming on. But, I mean, there's no other word than just devastating if you're an Auburn fan. This is a tough, absolute loss. And then on the other side for Oklahoma, gutsy win, dude. Gutsy win in a situation where you had to have it. Again, Oklahoma fans, we just got done talking A&M a little bit. And, yeah, they have some things to figure out in the past game. But for Oklahoma, with as many injuries you had, you take it as they come. You would take a win against Mississippi State on the road at Davis-Wade Stadium right now.
Nobody would complain.
To get your feet on the ground, go into a bye week before Red River, and just try to have a chance going into that one. I mean, I think defensively you can hang, but again, you just take this one. You get back to Norman. You have 2 weeks to get healthy as possible. I'm sure they'll get some of their playmakers back, but man, gutsy win. I mean, everybody kind of left you, myself included. I'm like, I don't know if they scored twice. But again, offensively they didn't. But once they scored offensively, and then the defense scored for them. And I figured in this game, I mean, you talked about it a little bit we got on, with as many the quarterback issues at Auburn, starting to hawk Michael Hawkins at Oklahoma, you figured there may be a defensive score. I just didn't think it would come in probably the most critical.
You didn't think it would be the one that decided the game. Nobody thought that. Nobody thought with Peyton Thorne, the way that he was playing, and I was kind of sitting there and I was saying to myself, he's not going to do it now, is he? Like this is the perfect moment for it. It's not going to happen. Directly into the hands of Kip Lewis. And then it was off to the races. Let me just remind people who wasn't playing for Oklahoma in this game. Jaden Gibson at wide receiver, Jaleel Farouk, Nick Anderson, Andrew Anthony, and Deion Burks. By the way, 4 of those guys were the leading receivers supposed to be going into this game. Taylor Tatum at running back. They also were without Green Hatchett on the offensive line, and Jake Taylor was probable. They were down bad. Multiple over. I think if I'm not mistaken, there was over 8 starters gone in this game.
Yeah.
How bad it was for a guy in Hawkins to make his first start, his first real start in an environment that on most days, you and I would agree, is one of the most dangerous, toxic, and also humbling places for a quarterback to play. Truly. And I don't think that he had the most exceptional performance, but my God, I mean, the way that this game went, the back and forth, the way that Auburn started to gain the momentum, the way that Auburn for 3 quarters actually played the most physical brand of football I have seen of Auburn, and the way that Jordan-Hare Stadium was rocking, the way that it sounded inside of that place, how it's supposed to be. What is supposed to be Auburn Tiger football? Because I'm going to be completely real with you. I think college football is better when Auburn is better. When Auburn is good at college football, it's great for the sport. And I love it. And that atmosphere, that game day environment, all the way up until 7 minutes left into the fourth quarter, that felt like complete, concisive, more importantly, authentic version of Auburn football. And it ended the only way it could have. It ended the only way it could have. Peyton Thorne, you knew what you had. You knew who he was. You knew exactly what he was going to provide. And what did he do? He provided an easy pick right into the hands of Kip Lewis. And number 10, marched all the way down.
Thorne was bad until then.
That was the worst play. That was it. He was playing.
Say you take that away, they run out the clock. You're probably sitting there like, all right, Peyton Thorne is probably definitely your best game of the year. That's kind of what people thought you would be in the improvement standpoint under Hugh Freeze in year 2. It's kind of like, all right, that's kind of what I thought your ceiling would be in this year. I thought that would get Auburn to 6-7 wins, but now we're sitting here, Auburn probably staring at 4 or 5 wins in the face. But no, you're right. I mean, from an Oklahoma standpoint, I mean, you're thinking from the other side. That locker room had to be nuts. From like, I mean, it was a season. That was a season-saving W right there for Oklahoma.
It changes your culture. Now, I think that you and I both have to say this. That version that you play today, that's not going to be good enough to win multiple games in the SEC.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not. So let's just let's just have a experience straight down the line, quality conversation. There are many things that Brett Venables has to fix. Mostly health. Mostly it's health. It's penalties, but health too, to be able to get to the level of what will be sustainable in the SEC. That is fair. You're not SEC ready with this performance against teams like Alabama, teams like Georgia, but it is okay because you got to win, and you got a gritty win, and somehow with a young quarterback making his first career start, he was able to connect on 2 explosive plays. Great play by Bauer Sharp to be able to get across the middle of the field. Great physical running that I saw today from Javonte Banks. 3.1 yards per play, 3.4 yards per play.
Barnes,
but still, Javonte Barnes, my bad. Javonte Barnes, just his ability to keep his legs moving and force him to the second and third level of the defense. That was a major difference maker in this. That was substantially a huge effort for them. And so for Oklahoma, you get a win. You get a win. You get a win on the road. You get a win in a toxic environment. And you get a week to now get back to full health and prepare for what is Red River. And we all know what Red River is. It doesn't matter who's the better team. It doesn't matter who looks better on paper. You throw all the stats out. You throw all the numbers out. You throw all the metrics out. You throw all the 5-star ratings out the window. And you let 3 hours of football decide who's walking away with the dub. Like, that's what that game is every single year.
No, I mean, you're right. You go look at Michael Hawkins' box score, you're not going to be overwhelmed. But if you watch the game, you're like, gutsy win, made critical plays when you had to have them. I mean, that's what you would legitimately say about him. And then your defense at the end, you had guys like R. Mason. Where's my guy on the depth chart? R. Mason Thomas had 2 big sacks to polish it off, and Robert Spears Jennings had a big game. It was the defense again. I'm sure the defense is probably sitting there like, man, till that last possession, we didn't have a turnover, and these dudes rolled in with 14 turnovers, and we led the country in forced turnovers. Like, what the hell's going on? It just shows you how wild college football is. I mean, Auburn was averaging 4 to 5 turnovers a week, and then they're playing the team who forces the most. You're like, oh, yeah, they'll continue that. No, Dave, but again, that critical one probably accounts for about 3 to 4.
Dave, outside of the Michael Hawkins touchdown run to open the game where it was 7-0, let me just read off the drives. Turnover on downs, punt, 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 Auburn touchdown, punt, another Auburn touchdown. Once again, who else stepped up? Keandre Lambert-Smith and then Malcolm Simmons with the 48-yard score. Punt, turnover on downs, punt, punt, field goal for Oklahoma, touchdown, turnover on downs, missed field goal, and you were up 21-10. And then comes 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and all hell breaks loose.
Well, Cole, think about this one. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but think about the finish before the half. What Hugh Freeze with like 12 seconds left, no timeouts, throws the hitch. It's like a fire crap storm to get everybody on the field. Oklahoma has 12 guys on. He misses it. They scoot it up. He misses it again. I think if he makes that, we're probably having potentially a different conversation right there. So that's another Auburn shooting themselves.
Auburn mistake.
At the end of both halves, they did not operate well offensively.
Walter Schultz has the best comment I have seen today. Auburn played stupid football, and OU ain't stupid. Auburn gave the game away. Because you want to know what? Auburn was the better team today. For 3.5 quarters.
Dominated in the box score. They don't win games. They dominated.
Auburn was the better team today. But Auburn shoot themselves in the foot. Auburn shot itself once again by trusting that Peyton Thorne was not going to make a mistake. Number one reason why you're hindered. And lo and behold, Kip Lewis, that momentum right after a touchdown drive, you get the lead, and guess what happens? You can't capitalize. Because guess what? Turnover on downs, field goal, end of game. That was it. That was the game. Once again, here we are.
The way they finished both halves really cost them this football game. I mean, where do you go from here if you're them? I mean, you're not at home for another month. I mean, your next home game, I think, is November 2nd against Vanderbilt. I mean, I think you got Georgia next week. Then you got a bye at Missouri and then at Kentucky, which obviously looks more difficult after today with Kentucky beating Ole Miss. Then you get Vanderbilt at home. I mean, Cole, wouldn't you say if you're an Auburn fan, you're probably pretty fired up if you got one of those 3 road games? I mean, would you agree with that?
If I'm an Auburn fan, just to get out of Drew and here, yeah, I would say so. I 100% would say so.
But I don't really know how much that really moves the needle from you have to get one to get to bowl eligibility, but you're sitting there at 2 and 3. You're staring at 5 and 7, 4 and 8 right in the face.
Auburn dropped the game last week to Arkansas. Auburn dropped the game this week to Oklahoma. Oklahoma with a brand new quarterback with multiple players all across the board. Multiple starters out. And Oklahoma could have had a better performance if they weren't making bonehead plays from time to time. The problem that I have, the biggest problem that I have, is that, again, here we are. Talking about Auburn. Hugh Freeze is 5-13 against Power 4. Sorry.
I'm kind of sad we're missing that. I know we got the Bama-Georgia game on now, but I'm kind of sad we're missing the Hugh Freeze press conference, too. There's probably got to be some interesting quotes.
I cannot wait to listen tonight before we do Sunday.
The thing I do, Hugh is he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he's pretty honest. So it's always like, all right, you're going to get what you think from him.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And if you're an Auburn fan, you're beyond frustrated because Hugh Freeze was supposed to be the guy to fix the mistakes brought in by Brian Harsin. Hugh Freeze was supposed to be the guy that would care about recruiting, that would build up the roster, that would hire the right personnel, and turn this into a dynamic thing. Here's something that I've heard, and I went back and I've watched. So I want to actually not believe this was true. But I went back and I watched a little bit of 2014 Ole Miss versus Alabama. And then I watched the same offense that we saw against Arkansas last week. Dave, it's the same offense. He has not innovated at all from what won in 2014. He is running the same style of plays. He is running the same type of offense. He's running the same type of run pass options. He's running the same option plays to the outside. He is still making the same mistakes. And much like we remember when John Gruden got hired by the Raiders and everyone was like, oh, he got fired because of all the emails and whatnot. Yeah, it was a bad deal. Yeah. The other reason why I was saying he needed to be fired was he brought back an offense that worked in 2002, and it's not working in 2020. It's the same thing a decade later. And did you not realize that what happened was your team, once again, found a way to shoot itself in the foot because if you are the problem. You are. There's nothing else to blame.
No, there's 100% no one else to blame. You banking on Peyton Thorne at the end. And again, I thought Peyton Thorne was fine today. It was just that critical turnover. I don't know. It's just with Auburn, where do you go from here? There's just not a lot of positive momentum. Your younger players are your better guys. Can you keep them still involved from a, hey, let's get better every day? Because again, like I have mentioned on a lot of our videos, keeping that momentum internally during the season is massive you don't keep these players like you don't have the opportunity to keep players like you used to. You really don't. You don't get to, like, there's not an automatic they're staying for 4 years. They're going to get better. Hey, let's go try to get 15 extra practice for bowl games. These guys can leave whenever the hell they want. So, again, Auburn, I think, has got to get one of these next 3. They have to. They have to. I mean, man, that's much more devastating than last week in the Cows.
You know what the worst part is, Dave? Is that right now, if I hear one damn time, him talk about the culture of that locker room, talk about the character of that locker room, talk about the persona of the team, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to absolutely lose it because I don't really care about the culture right now. I care about how, once again, we're talking about Auburn that has young players, good foundational pieces that need to see some type of direction of this moving properly if they're going to stick around. Because all you're going to do is you're going to frustrate people, and they're going to want to leave, and they're going to play elsewhere. And Auburn had a top 10 recruiting class last year. Jimbo Fisher had the number 1 recruiting class a few years ago, and look at what happened to him 2 years later. You're not safe. You're not safe when you do these type of things. When consistently you're bringing in the right recruits, but you're not putting them in the right situations, and you're finding ways to fumble the bag at the 1-yard line, opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, you're the one to blame. And the worst part is that if I swear to God here, oh, well, if we play that game 9 times out of 10, we probably split the spirit. But you didn't. But you don't get 9 times. You get 1.
You don't get 9 times.
You don't get 9 times. You don't get 10 times. You get 1. And your 1 time was not realizing that you didn't go out in a quarterback. I have been on the record all offseason saying I understand why Hugh Freeze didn't go in the portal to get a quarterback because they weren't a quarterback away. They weren't. And they're still not. And I think that we saw that today. There were so many miscommunications when it came to the offensive line at times protection. We saw the defensive inconsistencies. They weren't a quarterback away. But my God, if you knew that Hank Brown wasn't it and you knew that Holden Griner wasn't it, you decided to hitch your wagon to Peyton Thorne. You decided to do that. You're the only person to blame whenever it comes to that. So moving forward, that's what I have to say. Before we get on out of here and before I let Dave talk, I just want to make sure we get to our guy in Knees the Gray. $9. Thank you.
Knees the Gray's the man.
How about them Sooners? How about them? I don't know what they are yet. I truly don't. That's a performance that probably won't beat Alabama. It won't beat Georgia, but a win's a win, and I'm not going to really argue that right now. You got to win with literally half of your roster on the IR. And so for that reason, you got to give head credit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Cole. It's tough to nitpick the Oklahoma W. A W is a W. It's very black. And most things aren't black and white. It's usually in the middle. But for today, if you're a Sooner fan, if you're Brent Venables, yeah, you had 10 penalties. You got to clean it up. But all things context, that was a season saver. You get to go sit there and bet, guys, for 2 weeks. We have a new season starting next week in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl for Red River. You take it. Should be a great flight home back to Norman for Oklahoma. I mean, you stole one. You stole one when you were down personnel. Tip of the cap to Brent Venables and them. It was ugly, but a win's a win.
A win's a win. It was a solid win with almost our entire receiver core out. Again, you got to win. You got a win that's going to get you into the bye week now sitting at 4-1. You have an Texas had its struggles today against Mississippi State. And again, we know what this game could be. So I'm not going to rule that out entirely. I'm just looking back. When you're Auburn at this point, what do you do? What do you do?
You go to Athens next week, Cole. Let that sink in.
What do you do? Because
you roll. I mean, I think they're smart enough. You roll with Peyton Thorne again. Outside that one bad, again, as bad as it was and critical as it was bad. Still, you feel the offense moves better with him not under center.
Are you okay with now giving up the ball twice, if not 3 times potentially?
If you go to Hank Brown in Sanford Stadium, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, again, you were supposed to go up against the experience today, and for the most part, the experience looked well until it didn't. Until eventually you saw the pick 6.
No.
Like, that's where you are as an organization. That's where you are as a program. Again, this is a team. When people say that they are like that, we have to put only the blame on Peyton Thorne. They're 100% wrong. This is not a Peyton Thorne only issue. There are multiple problems going on with the offensive line. There's multiple problems going on with the receivers dropping easy catches. There's multiple problems with the linebackers.
8 yards instead of 10. Yeah.
I mean, the 60-yard pass down the field to
Keandre Lambert-Scott?
No, not Keandre Lambert-Smith. JJ Hester. The 60-yard pass down the field to him. Set up. Like, again, and I get that you were down one of your starting cornerbacks, but still, like, there's a reason why when we talk about where Auburn is at this point, why you're frustrated, it has nothing to do with simply just Auburn being Auburn. It has everything to do with the fact that you're not seeing progress. You're seeing regression. You know what you're seeing a lot of? What you saw last year at Florida. A lot of it. Where there was it was lateral movement at best. There was never a movement to the right up top. It's just staying idle. And you can't just wait to hopefully plan on getting an upset win. This was one of those games. Cal was one of those games. Arkansas was one of those games. And by the way, the worst part is you're away from Jordan Hare for a month. Let that sink in. You had the home atmosphere at your back, and you went 2-3.
Yeah.
And it's so many issues. It's so many issues. Top to bottom. And there's nothing really else you can do but just say, where do we go? Because literally, where do you go?
Well, I do know officially where you'll be next year, but it's probably next week where it's not really a spot you want to be in. Whether Georgia wins tonight or loses, it's going to be a tough matchup. And then, like you said, you're not home again until November 2nd against Vanderbilt. Who knows what we'll be talking about Auburn then. They're going to have to win 4 of their next 7. I hate to say it on this show live right now on, what is it? But the 28th of September. I don't think they go to a bowl. I think a lot of people would probably agree with me. I just think they had to win this one, or at least the Arkansas one.
You didn't have to win. It would be so different without that Cal loss. It would be so different without where the Cal game went. Because the Cal game, everyone in the SEC, you, me, Chris, multiple people on SEC Network, literally everyone thought, that's a game where maybe, okay, if they lose, it has to be because of somebody gets hurt, something changes, or a bunch of turnovers. Okay, well, they lost because of a bunch of turnovers. That was the game. Then the Arkansas game happens, and it's 5 turnovers versus 2. You're inside the red zone. You can't punch it in for a quick score. You're not able to capitalize when they go ahead and reap up 10 points off of penalties. That's where you are. And now you go ahead and you blow this game with a pick 6 in the 4th quarter. You allow them to go ahead and get the turnover on downs. Their defense steps up incredibly for 2 sacks on the second to last drive. They get a field goal. Now they're leading by over a touchdown. And now you have an offense that at this point is drained. Yeah. That's your game plan. That was the game plan.
I agree. Give Oklahoma credit. They never, with a true freshman start in his first start, you're down 12 starters. They never turned the football over, which we talked about that one in the Arkansas A&M one. Turnovers, even the playing field, even if you dominated the football game. I know Oklahoma's got to forget the 10 penalties fixed, and I'm sure Venables will. But, yeah, give them credit for not turning the football over. That won them the football game.
Number 8 for Auburn is really fast. Yeah, Cam Coleman. And, again, that's a player that you have to do whatever possible to keep him on the plains. Because the one problem is that people don't understand, as somebody that got to cover this up close and in person, getting frustrated with how the offense looks, getting frustrated with your role in the offense will eventually lead to potentially you going elsewhere. Evan Stewart was that way at Texas A&M. Evan Stewart was one of the most sought-after wide receiver prospects. He loved Texas A&M. He loved the program. I know that NIL played a major deal for him, but ultimately, he was frustrated with his role in the system. He was frustrated with how he wasn't being utilized. And eventually, he went elsewhere where he was going to win a championship, or hopefully win a championship, and certainly be bigger than what he was down at College Station. And Cam Coleman's one of the most important recruits that has come through this building in a hot minute. And that's the scary part. Keandre Lambert-Smith had a good game once again. You didn't see as many drop balls, but I think you can be happy with. But ultimately, there was still flaw after flaw after flaw that you could have capitalized and walked away with a touchdown, but instead you settled for a field goal. You missed a field goal. How about that? That's another big deal in this matchup. And then you give up the ball. Pick 6. And the worst part was, Dave, if that was just a great play by Kip Lewis, I probably would be a little bit more docile. But where was that pass?
Yeah, I mean, I literally said, you don't throw a pick 6 there, you probably win the game if you're Auburn.
It's not even throw a pick 6 there. It's that if Kip Lewis makes a diving grab, comes up, goes untouched, 70 yards, I can't really be upset with Peyton Thorne. Like how last week I couldn't be upset that he threw an interception because Cam Coleman watched that ball ricochet out of his hands and right into Slaughter's arms. But this game, that's where the problem was. It was directly at Kip Lewis, and he's a 5th-year senior.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
It's not. And so I understand where you come from. I really do.
I just think he's better than Hank Brown. That's the only thing. I'm not saying anybody's a future NFL guy here. I just think he's better. I think he operates the system better than Hank Brown does. Let's be honest. Auburn's going to go set the portal market in the quarterback world. And starting in December. And sadly, if you really think about it, that's probably the best game Auburn's played all year.
Yeah, and you know what the sad part is? It ends in a loss. It ends in a loss. That is 100% where we are. You want to say anything else before we get on out of here?
I think we've talked about it, really.
Auburn, wish you the best of luck moving forward. Oklahoma, gutsy win. Hopefully you're able to go bring this
season saver for sure. And what will we be talking about? What will we be saying when Auburn comes back to Jordan-Hare in November?
Bring this aura into the bye week, and let's talk about something very promising that could go down in the great Cotton Bowl for what is one of college football's best rivalries. Like, rate, review, subscribe, follow us on the socials at Mr. Cole Thompson, at Mock 10 Sports, at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social. Make sure that you also download the podcast version of the show. Check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you can keep up with everything that we're doing here. Post-game reactions, live hits, Sunday Fun Day, Dave Talks Ball, call-in hour, much, much more. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Auburn, I'm sorry. Oklahoma, Boomer, peace.